And the reason I wrote this first book is because over the years that I've been practicing consulting all the various discussions I've had about nutrition with people, I kind of began to realize repeatedly that there's so much confusion. And never a day went by where I wasn't being asked, about essential fats or butter or margarine, or is there more vitamin C in a kiwi than in a tomato, whatever. And, sadly, I have to say that the media don't help much, but God bless them, they're only reporting what's being fed to them. And there is so much scientific research. It's a huge, huge science. The thing is, there's nothing simple about nutrition. And therefore, it's a living science. It develops all the time. What I hope to do in this brief talk is to give you some ammunition so that you can be armed with the knowledge to go out there and ensure that you're going to produce, or that you're going to have the energy to produce all day long until you flop into bed exhausted. The other thing I'm going to discuss just briefly towards the end is the new book, principally because in the big book, which that's now called the big book and this is called the wee book, and in the big book I was sort of convinced that it would be a good idea to throw in a 2-week diet. There's occasions suddenly, you've left it too late, you're going on holiday and the bikini comes out the drawer and it's shrunk. And you go, how did that happen? I totally understand that we all have these occasions where we need to sort of drop some flab fast. So I put a 2-week diet in reasonably briefly, but a lot of people came back to me and said it works, it's tasty, I wasn't hungry, etc., and asked me if they could carry it on for longer than 2 weeks. So that kind of moved me into putting my research hat back on, and I've done quite a lot of research and worked out a 2-week plan. So I shall give you some info on that at the end. I've got 6 tables in my cafe, and the secret is that you can't keep going to the same table every day. You go into the cafe and table 1 will help you to stay focused. There'll be a bunch of foods on table 1 which basically will keep blood sugar levels even all day. So those foods are important in your diet. But you also want to stay calm. Now at table 2 there's a bunch of foods which are going to feed the brain and the body cells with the foods that are going to promote the production of the hormone which is going to help you be relaxed and calm and cope. How often do we then get the slump? About 20 minutes, half an hour later, whatever. So when I say bin, I'm very much a kind of 80-20 person. So like if you get it right 80% of the time, you can pretty much do what the hell you like the other 20%. It's not, I think the minute there are too many rules, we all want to break them, But what I suggest instead is what are now being, they get lots of different names. They're either called fermentable carbohydrates or non-digestible carbohydrates or sometimes resistant starch, and they are huge news at the moment. And the reason there's so much research going into them, beans and lentils are the big winners, but also legumes. Legumes just basically means something that's in a pod. Peas and broad beans are a particularly good example. How often do you have a 3-bean salad and go, well, I could eat another 6 of those? They are quite filling. So what I constantly want to sort of champion, that's a good word, champion basically is that, small and often doesn't mean large portions. A little of a good combination of foods that are going to feed the brain and be a good mix of carbohydrates, proteins, and essential fats are going to keep you A, fuller for longer, B, you're going to eat less if you're watching your weight, C, they're going to provide the nutrients to keep you focused till the next time you have your light meal or snack. Brain boosting fats, my absolute favorite. As I say, the brain is a huge percentage fat, and you'll maybe you're probably all too young, but some of you may remember when everything about fats was terrible. You know, avoid, avoid, avoid. You know, fats make you fat, fats clog your arteries, fats kill you, you know. And there's a very interesting man called Udo Erasmus, which is a fantastic name, who's Canadian, and he's more kind of well known really as the fat man, because he's done such an amazing amount of research on fats. And what he doesn't know about good, bad, and indifferent fats ain't been written yet. But he was very much responsible for bringing back the understanding of the fact that in fact, that's a tricky one, fats, we need them. Dairy. This is another one that always causes a bit of, the jury's in, the jury's out. Basically, the reason that nutritionists, dietitians, everybody in my line of business tend to encourage a cutback on wheat and dairy, they're the kind of principles. It's not because they're the devil in disguise at all. It's basically that we're eating too many of them. The Western diet has become, I mean, if you become a label reader, which I sadly have to occasionally when I'm writing things, and you just go down one line in the supermarket, you know, 90% of what you pick up has got some sort of wheat somewhere along the line. Not quite so much with dairy, but you know, we're all very fond of our lattes and our... I have a bit of a problem with fizzy drinks, just because I just really want to spare the children globally from the damages that they do. They're everywhere. And do you know how many spoonfuls of sugar in a can of Coke? Guess. More. 8. How many? 20. I like it. No, there's nearly 20 in this, though. There's 12. I mean, can you imagine? Like, you should actually be able to stand a spoon up in it. What I'm basically saying is you want to really be eating a rainbow. I mean, the more colour you can get into your diet, the better. Make sure the white stuff is minimal. And I know Coke is colourful, but let's pretend it's white, shall we, for this argument. So the stuff to remember in order to keep you focused and get everything that you're going to get from my 6 tables in my cafe is to have some protein with every snack, because that slows down the release of the sugars into the bloodstream, keeps you energized for longer. You know, we seem to have this terrible habit of sticking to kind of breakfast choices, lunch choices, dinner choices in the UK, and possibly in the US as well. But, you know, if you feel like, you know, I mean, I tend to be a fan of porridge, needless to say. You know, if you want porridge at 7 o'clock at night, have porridge. You know, it's not, just because it's regarded as a breakfast thing. The little book I said I would just give you a wee quick run through. The reason, I told you why this was written, and what I decided to do is that you've probably all repeatedly heard the dismal statistics. You know, people, dieters tend to regain, 85 to 95% of dieters tend to regain the weight lost within 2 to 5 years. I kind of thought, I wonder what the 5 to 15% do. Because there's obviously a lot of people out there who are making it work. So I did quite a lot of research, and I asked all sorts of questions of all sorts of people and got some very, very interesting answers. But what staggered me was that despite the incredibly negative press that quick fix diets seem to attract, they really get blamed for everything, yo-yo dieting, you know, weight gain, etc., etc. I actually discovered that an enormous number, or enormous percentage of those interviewed who'd been successful had actually found a quick fix diet that had not only worked, but they'd learned quite a lot of stuff from that particular diet or from various quick fix diets that they'd done. And they then continued with some of these eating lifestyle habits to continue to lose weight longer term. Interestingly enough, we have to include alcohol and coffee in our lives. And then there's all sorts of other interesting little things in there. So it's not about deprivation, it's not about starving. It's a 2-week diet that works, is tasty. It does concentrate quite a lot on soup. It's got some interesting recipes, soup recipes in there as well. I've also got what is called the Quick Fix Rescue Plan at the back, and that's the one that helps you, you know, in the airport, in the station, in a rush, you know, out for dinner. You know, it's amazing when you're trying to lose weight how everything you think you learned the day before just goes flying out your head. I just thought I'd leave you with this final thought, which I came across. The Japanese eat very little fat and suffer fewer heart attacks than the British Americans. The Mexicans eat a lot of fat and suffer fewer heart attacks. The Chinese drink very little and suffer fewer heart attacks. The Italians drink excessive amounts of wine. The Germans drink lots of beer and sausages. Conclusion, eat and drink what you like. Speaking English is apparently what kills us. So now you know. So we're all right.